Hi, I'm Mr. Long. I've been a teacher at Colonia High School for 12 years. So I was always a little bit like around the world of comics. I had an uncle, my godfather, growing up, and he collected comic books when he was a kid. He has like the first issue of Justice League of America from the 1960s. Like he's got a ton of really old, valuable comics. And whenever I would visit, he would show them to me. So that was kind of like where my interest in them sparked. Novels class probably started in around 2017, 2018, if I remember correctly. It had started a little earlier than that. I believe the course started in 2014, but when I started actually teaching it was in 2017, and I've been teaching it every year ever since. Yeah, so the curriculum looks like essentially it's kind of a combination of an art class and an English class. So you're not only looking at a text in the same way you would in an English class, where you're looking at characterization, themes, plot. You're also looking at the artistic elements that are brought to the table by the comic artist. So one of the big things that we really stress in the class as it's starting off is just learning the fundamentals of comic books and how they work. One of the ways we do that is with a book called Understanding Comics, which is a really great, really resourceful book that not only teaches you what comics are like, but it's written as a comic itself. So you learn a bunch of terminology and concepts that you need to be able to understand in order to talk about comic book art. And then from there, we read various graphic novels. We read Miss Marvel, we read Mouse, we read Persepolis, we read Watchmen, we read Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, and study them, analyze them in the way that we would in an English class, but also from the artistic elements that are being brought to the table as well. Every year with my classes, I do a field trip. The one that we've been to the most frequently is a place in New York City called the Society of Illustrators. It is a art gallery that is specifically dedicated to illustration. So not paint necessarily or sculpture, but specifically illustration. So they have a lot of exhibits that display comic book art, the original pencil artwork done by artists before it goes through the coloring and printing process. We've done some really cool exhibits there where we've seen artwork by prominent African-American comic book artists like Mike Mignola, who's the creator of the indie comic Hellboy. We've also gone to the Japan Society in New York City, where they had a exhibit about manga, and we did a art demo with one of the instructors that they have there. We've also done trips to the Kubert School, which is an art school in Dover, New Jersey, that is specifically for people who want to become comic book artists. And we also did a trip to the Jewish History Museum in New York City that had an entire exhibit about the Jewish history of comics. I think my favorite was probably the Kubert School, because the Kubert School would advertise in DC Comics when I was growing up. So the school was founded by a guy named Joe Kubert, who was an artist for DC Comics for many years. He worked a lot on characters like Hawkman, Sergeant Rock. So I'd always seen those ads growing up and been like, oh, this is so cool. I can't draw. I just appreciate art a lot. But I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to see that place. So getting to go there was like a childhood dream come true. So in the class, part of it is creating your own comic books. At the end of each unit, we take the various themes and concepts about comics that we learned about and then apply it to a comic. So usually the comic assignments that I give them are just brief 3 or 4 page comics. So one of the big ones that we read in class is Watchmen, and I know it's kind of a cliche answer, but every year I read it with the students. I pick up new interesting details or things that I didn't know about before, didn't realize before. Every time I go back to it, I'm like, am I going to enjoy it as much this time? And I'm like, yeah, it's still one of the best graphic novels ever made. As far as some other ones, there is a recent one called Do a Power Bomb, which is about interdimensional pro wrestling. And you're like, that sounds like ridiculous and silly. And it is, but it's also like one of the most emotionally moving comics I've ever read in my life. It's like beautiful. There's another one called The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. That's one of my favorites. That's about the personification of death coming to Earth and essentially having to live as a human in multiple lives over and over. And it's just a really beautiful story about life and the meaning of it and why we're here on this earth and what we're trying to do. So I think those would be 3 recommendations I would give to anybody if they're looking to get into graphic novels.
Hi, I'm Sophia Perez, and I'm a 12th grade student at Colonia High School. I've always been into comic books since I was in elementary. I only took it this year, but it was a very good experience because I've always wanted to take it. My comic book is, well, it was one of them, is based around 3 girls in a sleepover at a warehouse where they snuck to. And they basically just see some spooky things, I guess. That's pretty much it. I think that comic took me about like a week and a half. Like thinking about it was shorter than the actual drawing process. And my favorite comic book we read was Watchmen.